Coming up on Tech News Today, Universal Music Group gets a deadline. Tech News Today's episode 391 restored to YouTube. Facebook timeline arrives. And Microsoft tries more IE6 murder. And we encourage them. Next on Tech News Today.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is TWiT.
Bandwidth for Tech News Today is provided by Cachefly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is Tech News Today for Thursday, December 15th, 2011. Tech News Today is brought to you by Squarespace.com, the fast and easy way to create a high-quality website or blog. For a free trial and 30% off your new account for 3 months, go to Squarespace.com and use offer code TNT12. Welcome to Tech News Today. I'm Tom Merritt.
I'm Iyaz Akhtar.
I'm Veronica Belmont.
And I'm Jason Howell.
And Brian Brushwood is with us as well.
Huzzah! You know, it was total coincidence that I happened to be on the show just 2 days after we set fire to the internet in protest of episode 391 getting taken down.
And
Free TNT.
exactly.
Free TNT.
Veronica was on that episode as well. Veronica Belmont from TechZilla.com, SwordandLaser.com, The Game On Show, About.me/Veronica. Twitter.
And also a member of the League of Extraordinary Tom Merritt co-hosts.
That's right. Yeah, so we won. Woo! Tech News Today. Whoa, Jason, don't start playing copyrighted music. That'll just get us in trouble.
Don't worry about it. This is okay. This is Jonathan Colt.
So it's Creative Commons licensed.
Yeah.
All right.
There's one
We are
song,
the champions.
And it's kind of chill.
I know.
Want to stop it for 8 seconds?
Yoko? No, what I'm talking about, Tech News Today, episode 391, has been restored to YouTube. Now, as of 12:45 today, Pacific time, I went and checked and found that it was back and streaming. Last time I had looked was about 7:50 this morning because I was at a shoot all morning. So I'm not sure exactly when it went up. Someone on YouTube said they looked at 11 a.m. Central Time and it wasn't up then. So it happened sometime close to noon Pacific Time that it was restored.
So real quick.
Yeah, go ahead, Brian.
This means that I don't have to get this tattoo of...
That is correct.
Only
You
if
do
you
not
want to.
have to get any
I
of the
think you should
strange
still-
Photoshop tattoos.
Never forget. Yeah.
Those of us who forget history are doomed to repeat it. I have a feeling we'll be repeating this history again. But, you know, what's interesting is I didn't have to wait the 10 days that you're supposed to have to wait. I did not receive any communication from either YouTube or Universal Music Group. No one at TWiT did. It just reappeared. Now, we can speculate why. Leo Laporte talked about it on This Week in Google yesterday, which is watched by many people at Google. In fact, Matt Cutts from Google on Twitter said, hey, you know what? I pinged some people internally about this. Hope it helps. That could have done something. I don't know. It could also be the reporting. Nilay Patel from The Verge called me up and did an article about it on The Verge, which was then picked up by several organizations. Gizmodo had it, Slashdot had it, Ars Technica picked it up. I believe Cory Doctorow at Boing Boing wrote it up. Electronista picked it up. So it got a little bit of a press attention. But I think probably one of the more likely reasons that it changed is a federal judge gave Universal Music Group until the end of the day today to respond to charges that it is abusing the DMCA takedown process, and this is part of the suit from Mega Upload. On Wednesday, Mega Upload asked the court to rule quickly on the matter, arguing that UMG's takedown campaign was harming Mega Upload's free speech rights and, quote, UMG has squashed not only the video itself, but even public comment about it by others, including a 45-minute news broadcast that criticized UMG. The court should act immediately to ensure that the public that such tactics will not be tolerated. And Judge Claudia Wilkin wrote that she would defer ruling on Mega Upload's request for a restraining order until UMG had an opportunity to respond. But that's when she told them they have until the end of the day on December 15th to respond.
Wow. So we did it. Like that actually got some.
It actually had an
play.
effect on the court case. It's in
That was
some
fantastic.
small way. Yeah.
Well, and it's, our whole point, we were doing it jokingly on NSFW, but it's like when somebody goes around yanking news programs for copyright abuse, I mean, that's a clear distinction. You don't treat the news that way. And it's really satisfying that the exact flashpoint that got us so upset and, making a big, setting the internet on fire, as I said earlier, it's great to see that actually show up in legal documents as a reason for actual change to occur.
Now,
I mean, we were joking, but we weren't really joking. I mean, it did actually get some attention. We were a trending topic for a while with free TNT. So
That's
that
true.
maybe helped to actually bring some attention to the whole issue.
And frankly, I've had some experience with the DMCA takedowns before, but they were usually with things that were arguable. Things like, we showed a movie trailer on frame rate. We had a frame rate episode pulled down, and we think it's fair use, but I guess a movie company might say, this or that, and it's arguable. This was not arguable. This was a news program. This is an absolutely news program, commenting and critiquing a video and not transforming its use, or absolutely transforming its use, not undermining the market for it in any way. Mm-hmm. And the ownership is still up for debate. So anyway, I'm glad that the episode has been posted back to YouTube. I don't know who to thank for that, so I'll just thank everyone, especially everybody in the audience who posted on Twitter about it. Thank you for at least raising awareness, and thanks to all the coverage that we got on it. I do think this is a clear example that the system is broken, because I don't know why it was taken down, to be honest, really. I have my guesses. I have very good guesses, but no one ever told me why, and I don't know why it was put back up. It's a black box of a process.
Do you think that UMG is actually going to rethink any of their policies from now on? I mean, we have the ability to get press coverage based on what happened to us. But I mean, if you look at how many other people have probably been pushed off of YouTube because of these, they're not going to even, they're so afraid of that second notice, or they're so afraid of that first notice. Do you think they're actually going to rethink anything, or is this just one of these isolated incidents where there was enough of a groundswell where they had to pay attention?
Good question. I don't think it's going to change things that much. I mean, you could make the argument that the only reason that this happened was because there was a court case from Mega Upload. Mm-hmm. Not everybody who gets their video taken down off YouTube is going to go to court about it. And you could also argue that it was press attention, and not everybody's going to get press attention. That's not the way it should work. There should be a built-in system that when you have a fair use right, you can exercise it before restraint instead of afterwards.
Mm-hmm. So what you're saying is you would like to see massive sweeping legislation alter the way takedown and piracy is handled.
I don't know that I want to see massive sweeping legislation at all, but that's what we're going to get, isn't it? The Stop Online Piracy Act is being debated today in Congress, and it is a spectacle to behold. Representative Chaffetz from Utah has some pretty zinger quotes, saying, let's bring the nerds in and get this right. If you don't know what DNSSEC is, you don't know what you're doing. Of course, he obviously is in the anti-SOPA camp. Representative Lamar Smith, who leads the committee and is proposing SOPA, has, in describing how it's been altered since its original submission, says it protects the security integrity of the DNS by establishing a kill switch that will allow a provider to not carry out an order upon a finding that would impair the security or integrity of the system. The amendment ensures that the bill cannot be construed to require any order that would harm DNS and requires a study to ensure no DNS harm. So if that's true, Representative Smith, then I would submit that the appeal signed by 83 key internet engineers, including Vince Cerf, one of the fathers of the internet, makes SOPA irrelevant because they're saying everything in SOPA threatens the DNS.
Mm-hmm. I thought this was a really, really interesting letter because it's taking the people who basically built the internet and all the parts that go into it. And they're saying that if SOPA passes, it's going to break the internet. It's going to make it a less secure place, and it's going to bring it to the level of China and other countries that have these severe censorship restrictions put on their online content.
A letter was published in the New York Times today opposing SOPA, the Stop Online Piracy Act, signed by Jack Dorsey, Biz Stone, and Evan Williams. That's like having the Beatles back together. Those are the guys from Twitter. Flickr co-founder Katerina Fake, Yahoo co-founders David Filo and Jerry Yang, another dynamic duo. LinkedIn co-founder Reid Hoffman, YouTube co-founder Chad Hurley, PayPal co-founder Elon Musk, Craigslist founder Craig Newmark, eBay founder Pierre Omidyar, and Jimmy Wales from Wikipedia. So huge names in the tech circle saying this piece of legislation is a crock, and yet they're rushing it. They want to get it passed as soon as possible.
What's even
And that's the part I totally don't understand. What is the time sensitivity on this, that they need to push it through so fast? Is this a case where they don't want too much daylight on it so they can hurry up and push it through?
That seems
Is
to
it
be one
pressure
of the
from the
things.
entertainment industry? I think a large part
absolutely.
of it is pressure.
What's
From
even
the
crazier is
entertainment
that
industry,
internationally, I mean, the U.S. has been going around. The Secretary of State Clinton's been around in these conferences saying, this is a quote, "When ideas are blocked, information deleted, conversation stifled, and people constrained in their choices, the internet is diminished for all of us. There isn't an economic internet and a social internet and a political internet. There's just the internet." So internationally speaking, we have this policy of let's keep the internet open and free, but domestically, for some reason, it doesn't seem to be the same policy. This idea of messing up DNS just so we can, I don't know, theoretically stop piracy when we already have a tremendous amount of options. What normally would happen is, let's say we had a company and their copywritten stuff was being infringed. You could go for something like an injunction, right? You have irreparable harm. We need this thing stopped immediately. We have systems already in place for this. What SOAP is doing something that gets around something like personal jurisdiction. Like we have a bunch of these. Let's say we have like a Russian site, right? And we have copyright infringement. That's all they do. But they don't target the United States. You really can't do anything to them from the United States. SOAP has got that weird workaround where the U.S. is kind of in a bubble, so they're not technically even going after those people. So it's got some interesting legal footing there. But it's really bizarre how inconsistent the policies are between domestic and international with the internet with the United States.
Mike Masnick of TechDirt, is definitely a point of view reporter, but he has a really good Twitter feed going on following this right now. And that's where I found this Twitter posting from Representative Steve King, who said, "We are debating the Stop Online Piracy Act, and Sheila Jackson has so bored me that I'm killing time by surfing the internet." First of all,
Good luck doing that after SOPA passes.
he misspelled Sheila Jackson. But yeah, somebody made that joke. It was like, well, don't worry, Sheila Jackson will just submit copyright infringement accusation against your Twitter account and get Twitter shut down. So after SOPA passes.
Why
no
is it
worries.
jurors get kicked out of juries for stupid things like this? But if you're, I don't know, in charge of the laws of the United States of America, you can just screw around on Twitter while this stuff's going on? Like, shouldn't they be paying attention to what's going on? I don't know. It's a crazy idea.
I'm glad they take their job so seriously.
Yeah.
And she called him out in the session, by the way. She said, Representative King obviously has issue with what I'm saying here. I mean, and then they had a big debate about how they like I said, they forced them to read the entire text of the amendment or of the bill, which isn't normal. Usually they waive that. There are 60 amendments that they're now plowing through right now. The hearings are still going on, and most of them are getting rejected. This is an example of how broken our Congress is, because it's become a very partisan issue. But it's interesting that it's not partisan on party lines.
Right. Well, then I don't even know which side is going to vote on what. I mean, what is the current split on this? Is there a majority?
I don't know. I think it's majority Democrat against a majority Republican for, but it's not even. It's not neatly along party lines. I mean, you have Representative Daniel Issa, who is a Silicon Valley representative who is anti-SOPA. There's actually a really good article from Declan McCullough up on CNET about Representative Lamar Smith from Texas and how his constituency has no one from the media industry in it. In fact, his constituency covers parts of Texas that have Apple Computer. Apple has a plant out there. Dell is partly in his constituency. So he seems to be working against the interests of his constituency, who have all expressed their opposition to SOPA.
So what's the? I guess we don't get to find out what the current split is as far as people supporting it versus those who would vote against it. They don't do exit polling beforehand for Congress, do they?
Well, no. I mean, you could go find that. If you just look up, everybody's got a position, and they pretty much know roughly, whose votes are solid and whose votes are undecided at this point. We won't know until the committee decides to forward it to the House floor, but it's in committee right now. It's not actually been pushed to the House floor yet. And that's what's going on today, is the hearing that would get it out of committee and get it onto the House floor. It's been suggested that, we took 6 years to get patent law wrong. And we passed something. We didn't necessarily do much, but it took 6 years to reform patent law. and yet they would just want to rush this through in a year. And I don't think they have shown definitively what the damage is. What is the thing that needs remediation? Show me the economic damage that requires this to be prioritized. They just sort of jump to the conclusion like, yeah, we all know piracy is killing the industry. Is it? Let's see that laid out. I don't think it is. I think piracy is a horrible thing, and I think it is damaging to the industry. But is it damaging so much that we need to extend the current laws such a large amount that we risk the freedoms and the operation of the internet?
Well, sure. I mean, if you actually look at the data out there internationally, it looks like piracy doesn't hurt at all. So clearly, in the United States, we should have an assertion of the conclusion without it bothering to do a study, because the study would undermine the point. You see?
Well, it seems like they're spending more time and effort trying to protect this already dying model, as opposed to putting that same effort towards finding revenue models that actually work for them.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, they just want us all to assume, and nobody questions it, that the industry is dying because of piracy. The industry isn't dying. Let's be clear. In fact, it's not even shedding jobs in most of its sectors. The industry is not making as much money as it used to, or, depending on how you look at it, just not growing as fast as it used to. And that can be for many different reasons. We have the internet now. It didn't have to compete with the internet. And that doesn't mean that we're just using the internet for piracy. We're using the internet for all kinds of things. And that's going to take time and money away from consuming other media. I can guarantee you that Victrola sales are also plummeting through the floor and have been since the advent of the turntable. But that doesn't mean that we need to prop up the Victrola industry, that piracy is somehow ruining the Victrola industry.
Well, one of the bigger problems against SOPA is that its broadness as it stands, even with amendments, it's so broad. And one of the fears of, I think was part of that letter that the 83 signed, was that it can take down a whole site, not just a page. So let's say it's I don't know.
It can take down a whole domain.
Exactly. So like if
any non-infringing sites that are connected to that domain will be brought down in the process.
Right. So imagine like a foreign version of eBay, and one of them is only doing counterfeit stuff. The entirety of it would be ripped down, which is really not ripped down, would be blocked in the United States, which is ridiculous.
I think Representative Ron Wyden's Open Act is a much more reasonable place to start. It's not perfect, but it does provide protections for the workings of the internet. It allows due process, so someone, if they are incorrectly accused, can defend themselves. I have just recently felt what it's like to be incorrectly accused of copyright infringement without due process. I think it's an important thing for us to stand up for. Let's move on to something more light. Facebook Timeline now available for everyone.
Yay.
And
Yay.
Facebook implementing it in an opt-in way. Announced back in September at F8. And we talked about earlier that New Zealand already had access to it as of the 7th of December. Now everybody gets access to it. You can go to facebook.com/timeline and click Get Timeline, or just wait till you see an announcement at the top of your profile, and then you opt in to upgrade to Timeline. They give you 7 days to review what's in the timeline before you make it public, so that you can make sure that what you want to be in there and seen by everyone is in there, and you can remove things. They've also upgraded the Android app, so if you want to see Timeline in Android, you need to upgrade your app. They've also upgraded m.facebook.com on any mobile device. And Mashable reports that brands may be getting Timeline soon. They're not getting it yet, but Facebook says we hope to make pages more consistent with the new Timeline in the future.
Yeah, I'm looking at my iOS device. I don't see any updates to the Facebook app right now. So if you want to go look at a mobile timeline, you have to go to the mobile page at m.facebook.com. The weird thing, I'm kind of confused about the opt-in aspect of this. Now, Timeline is a replacement for Profile, or is it a new thing?
Yeah, it's not a replacement.
It's a replacement to your old profile layout.
So if there's a pre-existing part of Facebook, let's say like Messages, and they wanted to change the name of it, do you have to opt into that, or is that just because they're revising something? I mean, I'm just curious about what elements need to be opted into. Will everybody have a timeline eventually because it's the new profile already?
No, there is a part of the profile that will display if you don't have Timeline. Okay. Timeline is the better way of showing it, but you're not going to have a news feed showing if you don't choose Timeline.
Okay.
That is the way I understand it. Is that the way you guys understand it?
I think so. What do you mean? What do you mean the newsfeed part? Where?
Well, right now, before Timeline, if you go to somebody's profile, you see their wall, right?
Right.
I don't know what happens to that.
Okay.
If
I
you
gotcha.
decide not to pick timeline, that may or may not go away. I'm not sure about that.
I like timeline personally. I think it's definitely an improvement over the previous version of the profile page. Personally, but I know a lot of people don't like it.
No,
And you definitely do have to be careful about making sure stuff you don't want on there is not on there. And going back in time is kind of a trip. It's funny to see all the pictures from like 4 or 5 years
not only
ago.
stuff there. I only have like 3 months on my timeline because I just converted from a person into a brand and then started up a new person one. So I only go back 3 months, but it was amazing how many little things it caught that I totally missed because I don't check Facebook all that often. But, you know, people who tagged me at events or made jokes or references to being somewhere where I was. I think aesthetically it's fantastic. I really dug it. But of course, I don't use Facebook that much, so I don't think I'll get a lot of use out of it.
So if you want to check it out, folks, go to facebook.com/timeline.
It's actually
It will
about.
redirect
Oh,
to
good.
facebook.com/about/timeline, but you can just put in facebook.com/timeline. And then you can opt in from there starting today, worldwide, I believe. There may be parts of the world it's not in, but most of the world. Let's take a quick break and thank our sponsor, Squarespace.com, the fast and easy way to create a high-quality website or blog. We use it, right, Veronica, on
We do.
Sword and Laser. And I use that as an example because it's so easy for me to just go in. I cut and paste our lineup. I put it in. I use the WYSIWYG for the most part to make the links and pretty it up. And then there's things that Veronica gets mad about if I don't do right. So then I go into the HTML and I tweak it because it gives you the ability to do that. But you can just use the WYSIWYG for most stuff. And we have a nice looking website.
No, I'm very pleased with it. We've been using it for several years now, and it definitely makes it extremely easy to make updates and to post content very quickly.
So you can use Squarespace absolutely free. You don't need a credit card to try it out. That
looks amazing.
Yeah, that's Sword and Laser.
See how good our page looks?
That's fantastic.
And
See, Tom, I told you we'd get a chance to pimp Sword and Laser.
in the Squarespace ad.
That's 2 ads in one.
Anybody can do it. And you don't even need a credit card to try it out. Go there, squarespace.com. Import your old site. We had a site somewhere else. So if you got a site somewhere else, don't worry about it. Just import it into Squarespace. Play around with the colors. Play around with the layout. See what you can do. And then if you like it, you can keep it, squarespace.com, and you get 30% off. For what is it? Is
3 months.
3 months. 30% off for 3 months if you use the offer code TNT12. That's squarespace.com. We thank them for their support of Tech News Today. On to the death of Microsoft's Internet Explorer 6. Well, not quite yet.
More
Huzzah!
of a poison pill.
Starting in January 2012, Internet Explorer will start to auto-update using the Windows Update mechanism. Internet Explorer will automatically download and install updates in the background, starting with users in Australia and Brazil, and then scaling up over time, they say. This will only apply to users who've opted into the automatic updates through Windows Update. You can opt not to have automatic updates, in which case it'll just prompt you, like it always has before. Enterprise users can actually turn this off. But if you are auto-updating, anybody who's on Windows XP will be updated to IE 8. Anyone on Vista or Windows 7 will be upgraded to IE 9. And this hopefully will start to get rid of all those IE 6 installations out there. There's something like, what, 8.4% of the world still on IE6.
Yeah,
Now, is there anybody who's going to be upset by this? Is there anyone who's going to say, no, don't give me the latest version with the most security on it?
Yes.
Well, they can opt out. I mean, that's kind of the whole point of opting into the automatic updates. If you know enough that you don't want the changes, you should know enough to be able to turn that off.
You know, it's funny, Brian, when you asked that question, I was thinking earlier, Microsoft threatened to do this several years back, and we all got our backs up, like, forcing me to upgrade my browser to a different version of it. That's just wrong. You, Microsoft, you have no business telling me when to upgrade. But Chrome
Changed
and then
it.
Firefox have changed
Yeah.
our thinking to like, oh, well, forget version numbers. We're just going to constantly have the best browser. And I like that. I want that to happen as long as I can turn it off. If you start using it, you know, or abusing it as a company, I can turn off. And that's what Microsoft is doing. They're saying, you know, the world has changed. We can finally do this. You can turn it off if you want, but otherwise we'll just keep upgrading you to the most recent version.
To be honest, the moment I switched was just a couple hours ago when I was reading the story, and it says it will finally, like Chrome and Firefox and Opera, no longer, automatically update. I've never once busted Chrome doing the update. Whenever it does it, I'm clearly not paying attention. So it's like if I never even notice that the update happens and that the changes and improvements occur, then that's apparently the right way to do it. So I'm okay with it now.
So will it automatically upgrade people from like IE6 to IE9? Is it going to be that drastic of an update?
Yeah, I mean,
why would they do anything less? But
IE9 is only for Vista and Windows 7. If you are on IE6 on Vista, I guess. I can't imagine. On XP, I can see a bunch of people being on IE6, and then it'll push you to IE8. But XP doesn't actually support IE9.
Yeah, if you want to see how it's doing, it's actually down to 8.3%, I guess, now. It's on IE6countdown.com. I love this thing. I'm sure it'll never quite get to 0. There's going to be one holdout. It'd be
Right.
it's like an asymptote. Yeah, it's just going to keep
gonna
waiting.
Be John C. Dvorak.
He'll just be like, and there'll be an article and a shrine about this person who still uses IE6. And I wish this happened years ago because I was working on websites a long time ago, and I remember that I would have to code specially for freaking IE6. What a pain that was.
Well, I know there's a lot of sites that refuse to support IE6 just because of those very issues. So I think it's actually good that they're forcing at least the minimum upgrade.
Someone from CNET just called me. Don't they know I'm doing a show right now? I recognize the 344 in me.
Maybe
You should know better.
maybe
Called
you're
to
being called to the
congratulate
stand
you on
at
your
UNT.
triumphant counterattack.
Maybe. I don't know. I doubt it. All right. Let's move on to the hands-free phone controversy. We mentioned earlier this week that the NTSB was recommending, not enforcing, but recommending that states pass laws banning the use of any kind of electronics while driving, except for that which contributes directly to your driving, like GPS navigation, one would presume. New research from the Insurance Institute for Highway Safety suggests that talking on a phone, whether you're using a handset or a hands-free device, is distracting in the same amount. There's no evidence that someone using a hands-free device has a lower risk of crashing than someone using a handset. In fact, there's no hard evidence that accidents are increasing because of phone use. Last year, highway fatalities in the United States were the lowest since 1949. And yet, we've put in place in many states bans against talking while driving, or talking without a hands-free headset while driving, texting while driving. The bans have resulted in reduction in phone use. They have not resulted in any reduction in crash rates, according to the Institute.
Interesting.
And texting bans have apparently resulted in more crashes in some states.
What?
First of all,
That
that
can't
totally
be
makes sense to me. No,
correlated.
it totally makes sense to me because it used to be while you're driving along, you grab your car and you're checking your thing like this. But now I'm worried about the cops seeing me. So instead of my eyes darting 1, 2, 3 degrees, now it's down. I'm doing this thing. I'm like, hold on, let me switch the
No, it still looks
You hide
bad.
it below the lower third. Exactly.
There we go.
But now I'm getting crashed. But I understand the meaning of the legislation. You run across a scientific fact that you're just as distracted whether or not it's your phone's held up to your ear or in a hands-free device, and you want to do something about it legislatively. But you got to remember that technology outpaces legislation, and the whole relevance of this issue is going to go away in just 5 years. We already have cars on the road that can regulate the speed. They can stay between the lanes in traffic. They can park themselves. In 5 years, we're going to be driving cars that are doing the driving themselves, and it'll be totally irrelevant if you're doing your makeup, if you're even drunk, or if you're using a hands-free device. It doesn't matter. So all of this is silly, and it's not going to do any good.
The Insurance Institute spokesman Russ Rader said that new technologies that help alert drivers to hazards on the road would probably do more to actually reduce distracted driving crashes than these bans. But you're shaking your head.
Well, here's the thing. People like to multitask no matter what. They think, oh, I can drive and I can do this other thing. I've seen people walking around trying to text and run into things, okay? That's how dumb they are. There are applications out there that actually activate the camera on your phone so you can see what's in front of you while you're texting. It's like it's almost a sheer overconfidence by certain people that are doing this. So whether it's texting below the line or not, it's like people keep trying to do more and more and more with less time. It's really not necessary to do that. But, I mean, it's basically legislating stupidity. If you're going to be doing this, right, and these people are going to, they're going to get hurt. That's what happens. I mean, this is the worst kind of version, I guess, of this is survival of the fittest, I guess, if you're going to be stupid enough to do this.
Well, it is odd, not odd, but it is significant how much more risk we accept in driving cars than we do in so many other areas. I've got carbon monoxide detectors in my house now after a law was passed requiring them on the off chance that the smoke detectors don't detect the smoke and I pass out from carbon monoxide inhalation. Now, I don't think that that's necessarily a horrible thing, but wow, that risk is extraordinarily low compared to the risk of dying while driving. And yet we fight tooth and nail against anything that would force us to drive more safely, even in a smaller amount.
And like Brian was saying, these cars are getting smarter and smarter, and it's getting easier and easier to drive with like one finger. I mean, before power steering,
easier and easier
really
to be stupid. Yeah.
It's just because you're like looking around. Oh, yeah, I can notice what's going on. I have my extra. I have like my backup camera, so I can see what's going on behind me. I can see all this other stuff, and you think you're really in control when you're not.
So here's what it is people often complain that cars technology is not accelerating as fast as we're accustomed to with computers. The development of superior car engines has been phenomenal, but the problem is we have not channeled our efforts into higher miles per gallon. We've wanted more power from our cars, and now you have 300 horsepower vehicles that are cheap and affordable. There's a case where even if we have more safety controls built into our car, we're going to channel them not into driving safer and reducing our overall accidents. We're going to channel those efforts into providing a greater level of useful productive time while you're behind the wheel. You're going to so once you get to a point where you can tether your car to the semi in front of you and stop paying attention to the road, because if he stops, you'll stop. If he turns, you'll turn. That kind of thing. We're going to spend that extra time not looking out for other disastrous things coming our way, but instead getting other productive things done. And that's okay. That's a wonderful thing. It's human nature that we want to accomplish more in our time, and it's the technology that's going to make things safer, not legislation. Trying to legislate the behavior of individuals is an exercise in utter futility.
Well, and everybody in the chat room is saying, carbon monoxide is about leaks, not fires, which I sort of implied that it was about fires. And people have almost died from carbon monoxide. Now, I'm sure that people have died from carbon monoxide from a gas leak in their house. But people die in large numbers every day from driving a car. And we don't outlaw cars. Now, the upshot for me from this is we have put in laws because they seem to make logical sense from a point of ignorance. If I'm driving while distracted, I have a higher chance of a wreck, so let's outlaw things that distract us. Phones distract us. Outlaw using those, but we actually like making calls, so let hands-free work because that seems less distracting. Outlaw texting because you can't do that without being distracted. We're not actually paying attention to what the actual risks are, and in that case, I think what we need to do is educate people, and that's always a much more difficult thing to do, but it's not about placing a law that says this behavior that doesn't really seem to index against the risk is now outlawed or push you into doing riskier behavior because you're afraid of getting caught. We need to actually realize that you're driving a death machine when you're in a car. You're driving something that can kill yourself and others, and you need to handle it that responsibly, and people don't.
And by the way, in the chat room, a bunch of people are saying that we'll never have cars that drive themselves. People like control. They like to be in control or feel like they're in control. All these things are true, but all of that will change. The first year you could point to the 20,000 lives that were saved by letting the computers drive the car. And then the following year, when 80,000 lives get saved. It's so important that at some point when you can accomplish more other tasks, when all of a sudden you extend the functionality of the elderly to where they can still live in their house and get to everywhere because the cars are driving themselves. Once you see the benefit of it, you will be able to engage manual control to have that delightful feeling of driving your own car. But it's stupid. You are way less responsible a driver than the car will. It'll be smart to just let the car do the driving, and eventually we'll come around to it when we see the numbers.
I definitely agree with Tom on this instance because people see driving in a car as being a very personalized experience, and they want to use that time the way that they think is most optimized for their life. So they're going to be doing multitasking, doing talking on the phone, talking to friends. But every 5 years, we get these new studies saying that, oh, this thing is more dangerous than the other thing. Being drunk is less dangerous than texting while driving. But if we, like Tom said, educate people that you are driving a 2,000-pound automobile that could kill someone instantly, I don't think the situation is going to change at all. I mean, it's illegal to talk on your cell phone in California, having the cell phone up to your head yet, or at least in San Francisco. I'm not. Is it
It's
statewide?
California, yeah.
Okay. But at the same time, I see people doing it every single day. No one cares as long as they don't get caught. They don't understand that that it's their safety and it's the safety of all the people around them that is what's trying to be put into effect.
More on self-driving cars coming up in the news fuse, but let's finish up with GPS because we need to know where those cars are, whether we're driving them or the robot is driving them. And Lockheed Martin is testing new and improved global positioning system satellites as part of a $5.5 billion upgrade. Prototype arrived at Lockheed Martin in Colorado on Monday for final assembly and testing, and the real satellites are set to go into orbit in 2014 once they build those. First launch will be in 2013, and by 2021, they hope to have 24 of the so-called Block 3 satellites up and operational. They improve over the current Block 2 system with an increased lifespan from 12 to 15 years, easier upgradability, and a more powerful signal that's more difficult to jam and easier to lock onto. So if you're under the canopy of a forest or if you're inside, you'll have a better chance of being able to lock onto a GPS signal. They'll also be able to send a military signal separate from a high-quality L1C signal, a multinational common civilian frequency that'll allow using foreign satellites, which is for better interoperability, and improve location accuracy to within 3 feet from the current 10 when combined with other signals. I'm excited about better GPS.
I'm just excited that if it can get you within 3 feet, or it can work inside of areas that are like covered, that you don't have to sit there and wait. GPS locating. Finally, I got there. Like like I usually don't leave the house for like 10 minutes until it shows up because I'm afraid to go the wrong direction. So I kind of like this idea because I get lost easily.
Will this change anything for Light Squared, or is it still going to be on the same?
Oh, no.
All devices will be wrapped.
Light Squared still has to solve its interference issue with GPS. I don't think this is going to change anything because I think these satellites still use the same frequency spectrum. So that's all exactly right.
Wishful thinking.
Right where it is right
Maybe
now.
they'll add in a spec for shielding. Lots and lots of shielding. And Light Squared will pay for it.
Nah, this is all about the satellites, unfortunately.
Oh.
All right, let's move on to the news fuse. RIM announced its earnings today, saying RIM continues to have strong technology, unique service capabilities, and a large installed base of customers.
Good for them.
That's right, RIM. You just keep thinking positive. The actual financials, revenue was down 6% year over year. For the current quarter, the company predicted another drop in revenue and BlackBerry shipments. They also announced that BlackBerry 10 devices won't be available until the latter part of 2012. But chin up, BlackBerry.
Yeah, everything's going
Keep that positive attitude.
fine right into the ground. Amazon shed some light on Kindle sales by announcing that for the quote, the third week in a row, customers are purchasing well over 1 million Kindle devices per week, end quote. Amazon didn't bother to break out numbers for each model of Kindle, but did say the Kindle Fire has sold millions of units and demand is accelerating as Kindle Fire sales increased every week for the past 3 weeks. So there you have it, some honest to goodness soft numbers on sales.
Some numberish things. Speaking of Fairfax Media, Bill Gates said that he has no plans to return and lead Microsoft. In case you hadn't heard, there were rumors that he was going to return and lead Microsoft. Instead, Gates will be working on the philanthropy stuff, saving the world, that sort of thing. Considering the recent shakeups of Microsoft and failing approval ratings of Balmer, I don't know, maybe Gates could do both.
To save the world through Microsoft. Microsoft's quietly launched its new experimental social network, once known as TWiT. It's now called Social, available at so.cl. So what is it? It's aimed at helping students share web pages, create posts, and rich media sharing.
Ain't rich.
Right. Search is conducted in social or public by default and pulls from Bing APIs. Right now, Microsoft has partnered with a few schools, including NYU and the University of Washington. If you want to go try it out, you can sign up by emailing socl@microsoft.com.
Why do they do this? so.cl. Please pronounce it social.
Well, did you hear about Microsoft's new social network? I said that to you. Like, what?
The Facebook. Carrier IQ is not being directly investigated by the FBI, according to FBI Director Robert Mueller, speaking at a Senate panel on Wednesday. However, Mueller did say that the FBI may have obtained data that, quote, in some way Carrier IQ may have been involved with. So the FBI may or may not have data somehow related to Carrier IQ. What this probably means is they don't want to admit that they have data from the carriers themselves that was collected using Carrier IQ software, but they're trying to make clear that they haven't received it directly from Carrier IQ.
Perfectly clear.
There's a fine point, and they just put it on.
On to Light Squared. A government report says that Light Squared's proposed wireless LTE network would interfere with the majority of GPS devices. Sound familiar? Yeah, this report was leaked a few days ago, but it was made official yesterday. Light Squared CEO Sanjeev Ahuja said his company is not giving up, there's a shock, and will work with the FAA to fix the problem, but still disagrees with the findings. So
I thought
nothing
you were
has
going to say
changed.
they'll work with the FDA.
The
The
FDA
Food and
just-
Drug Administration will solve this
They could
by
genetically.
giving everyone drugs to believe there's no interference.
Each person will be an LTE device.
It's fluoride, people. Data from youhavedownloaded.com says that IP addresses belonging to the Élysée Palace downloaded a cam copy of Tower Heist and the Beach Boys' greatest hits, among other things. If you're unfamiliar with that particular palace and wonder why I'm pronouncing it Palace, it's the official residence of French President Nicolas Sarkozy, the outspoken world leader who wants to rid the world of piracy. No word if Hadopi will bust down the doors of the Palace.
Microsoft has embraced XMPP and OAuth for Windows Live Messenger, which means chat clients will be able to interoperate with Messenger easily. The service already has 300 million users, according to Microsoft.
And finally, the USPTO granted Google's patent application for, quote, transitioning a mixed-mode vehicle to autonomous mode. What
does that mean?
That means Google has a patent on cars that can switch to a driverless mode by detecting a landing strip like a QR code.
Ooh.
Driverless cars.
That's awesome.
Google applied for the patent back in May, and now they got it. Now they just got to build it. Getting a patent doesn't mean you're going to build it.
Well, they have driverless cars. They're just basically saying they're going to look at a little
Or
strip
sell it. Yeah.
of that could be a QR code, and then you can switch your modes. It's kind of a neat little idea.
Driverless cars. And time for randomizer.
Randomizer.
New pair of glasses from Loomis will help you get the most out of your video headgear. These things let you peer past their lens-projected view screens, opening the door to augmented reality that doesn't rely on miniature displays, so you can look right through them. They create an 87-inch virtual screen viewed from 10 feet that is only experienced by the individual wearing the headgear. Onlookers will only see you wearing these kind of weird glasses.
It's like they're not even there.
Yeah, it's only 720p, but the company said that a full HD flavor is in the works.
Yeah, but you can see, like, if you're looking at the person with these glasses, you see a transparent image. You can see their eyes.
Yeah.
You are not seeing what they are seeing, so they're goofing off on whatever. They're watching, Tech News Today while they're supposed to be paying attention to something. Like, I don't know, court case.
Yeah, HBO.
That is so cool.
Yeah. So if you see people wearing these weird glasses and they kind of don't seem to be paying quite attention to what you're saying, now you know why.
They are absolutely not.
They're not paying any attention.
This is one of those things that I don't care how dorky it looks. I mean, it's like I'm already wearing glasses, right? So you just add a little something on the side there, and all of a sudden, like this is the beginning. This is one of those things that in 10 years, it will not just be for watching movies or looking at your emails, but you'll have like built-in facial recognition technology that the moment everybody walks into your field of view, it'll identify the person, say where you met them last, and remind you about their family so that
Well,
you
it's
can
like
bring
Woofy
conversation.
from Down and Out in the Magic Kingdom, Cory Doctorow's book. It's exactly
Yes.
that, basically.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'm sure. Yeah, absolutely.
It's also Demon, Daniel Suarez's book. You could be wearing these glasses and see the levels of everyone in your dark net.
There you go.
And all the way back to Snow Crash, of course.
Of
I mean,
course. Yeah, absolutely.
No,
And,
and it's
the
awesome.
different,
It's
yeah.
awesome.
William Gibson.
Somebody just asked, will glasses be banned while driving? That's I'm screwed. There you go.
Yeah, no kidding.
All right, let's move on to the calendar.
Wednesday night, Sling launched the Sling Player web app for Google TV on the Logitech review, so if you wanted to get one, go get one. The UK iTunes Store has been updated with a new link to iTunes Match, where you can subscribe to the music matching service in exchange for £21.99 per year. You'll need to upgrade iTunes to version 10.5.2 to get it. It finally launched today, but there's already a deal or two deals on the Verizon Galaxy Nexus.
Ooh, nice.
$155 at Let's Talk. You got to check their Facebook page for details. And Amazon Wireless is offering it for $150. So
How much did you pay for yours, Jason?
$249.99.
you pay too much.
Well, you paid $50 less than the list, right? So
Yes.
All right, you got something.
I
of
feel
a deal.
okay about that.
All right, good.
Tomorrow, Friday, December 16th, Bradley Manning goes on trial. Also tomorrow, iPhone 4S launches in Brazil, Russia, and other countries.
Let's check what's incoming.
Incoming message.
Our first incoming message takes issue with me constantly objecting to the term 4G. Let's hear his arguments.
Hey guys, this is Jeff from Wisconsin. Hey Tom, I know that you have big issue with the term 4G, and I get it, but you know, if you had something that was faster than 3G, what would you logically call it? Would you call it 3.5G? Probably not. So that's why they call it 4G. I think it's time to let it go, Tom. I know it's 4G could mean a lot of things, but
4G? Okay. Yes, they already use 3.5G. That's why they went to 4G. But my point is not that we shouldn't have something that says this is faster than that, but 4G doesn't mean it's faster now. One 4G is not the same as the other 4G, so they're all meaningless.
I don't know. You could just have this on the Tom Merritt soundboard at this point. I've
I
heard
know.
that point. I'm just saying they could just put the number, right? Forget the 4G, 14.4 megabits per second, 28. Put the actual number. Remember modems when they had that? They didn't call them Gs.
And then you know speed.
Yeah, there's an idea.
You know what processors do? They're clock speed. That isn't even necessarily the best way of evaluating a processor, but at least it's a real number that means something.
It's related to something.
Okay, now, hold on. I think you just killed your own point there, Tom, because there was a time that we decided we were all too obsessed with how many megahertz or gigahertz
Yes.
or processor we're
Yes.
running at. And they said, what we really need to do is focus on generations and do a kind of the way BMW does their models and have classes of these things based on the actual performance metrics. So which way do you want it? Do you want the hard numbers that could be misleading and gamed, or do you want to talk about it in terms of generations?
Well, then Apple screwed up the process even more by going from 3G, which meant it had 3G, to going to 4, which you would think it was 4G, but it's not. So it's like you want easier naming conventions, but then things make even less sense.
If, Brian, we are going to use 4G to mean a generation and class as defined by the international standards body that defines it, I'm fine with that. But the problem is everyone's using 4G when it doesn't meet the definition. So now it's become bankrupt and doesn't mean anything. It's like calling something excellent.
No, that's a really good way to put it, and call it bankrupt, because the words only mean as much as we believe in them, and if they're overusing it and they abused it, then it does become bankrupt. It reminds me of when Chuck D, in the height of the MP3 bubble in the late '90s, decided he was going to create MP4. This is before the Apple standard or whatever, but nobody believed it. But he was trying to cash in on the identifiable brand of MP3 with his own standard.
We're all out of G's.
We're all out of G's.
So lost without them. And now probably our caller has torn his hair out because he's had the opposite effect. Instead of making us not talk about this anymore, we've talked about it.
It'll never end.
So let's go to our next voicemail. A new use for FaceTime, possibly preventing distracted driving.
Hey guys, this is Reach613 from Ottawa, Canada. On episode 392, you mentioned the NTSB was going for a ban on cell while driving. Tom said that a person's brain is devoted to imagining a person, but if they are beside you, it doesn't. Plus, they see the same distractions you see and can moderate their conversation. Maybe we could all just do FaceTime with our phones with the person calling you only able to see through the rear of the camera, so they can see the road and the distractions that you see, and you don't have to imagine them because they're on the phone through FaceTime. Thanks a lot. Have a good one.
What do you think, guys? So, because what I was referring to is the idea that they have noticed that when a person is actually sitting next to you, you are less distracted and use less of your brain to have a conversation than when you're talking on a phone. And they theorize that that's because you're trying to imagine that part of the conversation. I think scientifically you'd need to test that and find out if there's a difference between the person actually being present and you knowing that versus having them on a phone. But could FaceTime kind of be
I don't think so, because there's been a lot of discussion about voicemail and even things video conferencing and things like video calling and even stuff like Skype that we're doing right now, where people actually put a lot more effort into the discussion because they're focused on the way they look in the conference call. So when you know that someone else can see you, suddenly you're paying a lot more attention to that side of it. I don't think you think that exact same way when you're physically with the person. I think it's something very specific about being over a video conference call.
That's a really good
The
point.
caller was suggesting, though, that the caller will only see the road conditions. So theoretically, they're not seeing you. So maybe you wouldn't be worried about your
You
own
would see
appearance.
them, but they wouldn't see you.
Right. So maybe the caller, I mean, the thing is, if the caller's, the person that's on FaceTime with you is only looking at themselves, not paying attention to the road conditions, or Jason brought up this great point of if there's a delay.
Yeah, if there's a little bit of latency, their input isn't going to matter a whole lot. It's going to be like, oh, hey, watch out, you're going to crash.
Well, the latency is a big issue. Although I don't think the point is they warn you. It's that they don't interrupt you when a tricky situation
when something is happening. But I mean, even beyond that, how much can you really tell from just a shot of the road? Like, you don't understand
You
these
don't
fine
get to look
details.
around.
Totally.
Yeah. All right, let's finish up with an email from Rinus, who says, I just finished listening to TNT 393, and regarding the caller from New Zealand and bandwidth caps, you might have a point. He means, I suspected that maybe because New Zealand won the Rugby World Cup this year, that's why their bandwidth caps have been getting higher. He says, while South Africa's last World Cup victory is a longer way off than New Zealand's, we used to be crippled by bandwidth caps and speeds, usually between 1 and 3 gigabytes per month at 1 megabit per second down. Now I have both an uncapped account at 4 megabits per second and an account capped at 50 gigabytes at 10 megabits per second. There's also talk of infrastructure upgrades giving us up to 48 megabits per second speeds in the next few years, and this all at reasonably affordable prices. So the verdict is in: win a Rugby World Cup, win the internet.
So we need a national rugby education or something, because otherwise we're going to get stuck.
What we need to do is to have a TWiT team and get in the rugby business. TWiT wins it, then America gets it, and we're fine.
You know, Becky Worley.
It's good for America.
Becky Worley played on the national U.S. women's rugby team. Patrick Norton played rugby in college. I think we could.
That is interesting.
I think we could put something together here.
I'm probably not good at rugby. I'll warn you right now.
How about this? How about we be the Harlem Globetrotters of rugby? We go out there, circles,
and that means we'll get the Harlem Globetrotters of internet.
Well, maybe we could just get one of these rugby teams, one of the international ones, and just like pay them to be here, be citizens, be our team, win, and then we can get internet.
Yeah, but to win the Rugby World Cup, you have to actually have people who are citizens.
Well, just make them citizens.
So you're going to go the whole 9
let's
yards,
go the whole thing.
Well, it's certainly been done before.
It's got to be cheaper than trying to explain to the FCC how to set this up.
Yeah. All right. FCC, sink all your money into buying a rugby team to win the Rugby World Cup.
Brilliant.
That's all you need to do. That's it for this episode of Tech News Today. Thanks to everybody who submitted stories for coverage on technewstoday.reddit.com. We love seeing what you guys submit there. It really helps us in putting together our lineup every day. technewstoday.reddit.com. And submit your favorite moments of TNT or any show on TWiT at twit.tv/bestof. By the way, we're going to have to make our decision on the open mic.
Yeah. Maybe we do that later on this afternoon.
Yeah, so we're going to do that this afternoon. You should be hearing about that soon because that's going to be recorded on Monday at noon. And that's it. I think we should let Brian go first so that Veronica can get the last word. It's one of the few situations where protocol has the lady not go first. So, Brian, which show that you do with Veronica would you like to promote?
Oh, you know, who, me? A little show coming up on the TWiT network called Game On, premiering January 15th. In fact, I actually today, Veronica and both read one of the bits that we're planning to do. So excited about it.
So
Veronica,
good.
seriously, I can't say what it is, but man.
No spoilers.
Every time we have our production calls, I just get more and more excited about the show. Like, I get off the phone, I'm like, it's going to be so fun.
When are you actually going to be doing the first one?
January 15th.
January 15th. All right, I'm looking
Right
forward to
after
that, too. That, and Veronica, anything else to add before we get out of here?
Let's see. Yeah, just check out Sword and Laser if you like sci-fi and fantasy. Me and Tom. Texzilla on Revision 3, texzilla.com, and Game On, coming soon.
And Frame Rate on Tuesdays with Brian. I should say.
I don't do that show.
No, I know you don't, but just to complete,
Therefore, I don't
just to
care.
complete the circle.
There you go.
All right, that's it for this episode of Tech News Today. You can find us on the web at twit.tv/TNT. You can email us. Our email address is tnt@twit.tv, and you can give us a call. Our phone number is 260-TNT-SHOW. Leave us a voicemail. Darren Kitchen with us, as always, on Friday. Sarah Lane's still out for one more day, though, so we got Julio Ojeda Zapata on as well. We'll see you then.